Are you ready to get unbothered? Yeah? Sound? That was one heck of a sound check you just did. Jesus. You must really have a lot on your chest today. Can I have a kiss? Ah. Let's get unbothered.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Thai Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Thai Rivera. I'm your host, Thai Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian. Maybe I should be a little more prepared and actually have it in the hand that it has to be in. And why is my hat crooked? What is going on right now? My life is out of control. It's an unmanageable situation, and that's what I want to talk about. Just playing. Really, life is going really well right now. And it really is up to me to just make sure that I keep the ball in the air because sometimes the universe is really working with you, and then, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're like, okay, this is not, we need some help with this recipe. But right now, I feel really, really good about everything. I don't feel good about this little dog that's gone crazy because I just got through playing with her. My apartment looks like shit hit it, as my mom would say, because when I was growing up, that was one of my favorite expressions that my mom would say. She would say that this house looks like shit hit it. And it was such a funny expression to me. And, my nephews and nieces know it too, that expression. The other one that she would say, and this is one she would say to my nephews and nieces, she would tell them that this house looks like their faces. And that ain't pretty. And that's what she'd say right after. She'd be like, this house looks like your faces, and that ain't pretty. But my nephews and nieces are good looking kids, and they knew that, and they knew that she was just being silly with them. That was just an expression that she would use. And it's always been super funny to me because people that don't like, when I was younger, friends would meet my mom and my dad, obviously, but they'd have this idea that they were these like serious people, because my parents, they keep it together pretty well in front of people. They're pleasant and nice to our friends, but they're not overly like silly like they are when it's just us at home alone. So people had this idea of my parents that they were like super, not I wouldn't say uptight, but just a little more on the maybe formal end, I guess you could say, and so knowing my parents like I did, and knowing how silly that both of them were, because last week I talked about what my parents were like, and they were like, or what I was like, I should say, when I was young, but I didn't really talk about what they were like. And they were always very silly with me, both of them. And really silly with all of us, but I think especially silly with me because a lot of people don't realize that for several years when my sister was before my sister was born, my little sister, I was the baby. And so they were always like super silly with me and super fun with me because, I was the baby. And so they had, because I had two older sisters, and they had their roles established by the time I came in. And so I was the baby, and they were always fun with me. And then when I went to kindergarten, I don't know if this is standard now, but when I was younger, the town I grew up in, kindergarten worked like where you would, you have a lot of energy right now. What's going on with you? Have you been eating sugar? What's going on? She's got a lot of energy right now, and I don't know why. We just literally finished playing a minute ago. We were playing, because she has so many toys, like I've told you guys before, and right now there's toys literally everywhere on the floor. And it's because we had a good play session, and I think now she's just still in that mode where she thinks we're still playing and doesn't realize that right now daddy's working. But, this is my life. It's what it is. I'm used to this little dog, and we spend a lot of time just us, and I can't wait to eat enchiladas after I'm done with this. I made myself a deal because I don't know about you guys, but I'm the kind of person that if I have to keep myself going in every single thing that I do. Puppy, stop now. We'll play later. I know. It's not fun when I have to be like this, but right now I've got to work. I love you. But we got to chill out for a minute. Now she's looking at me like, what the hell? What has happened to you? You used to be cool. We used to be homies. You used to be my ace. Now I want to slap the taste out your mouth. Oh, that's from, never mind. But yeah, so I'm a person that has to like, I live a reward-based life. Like, you guys know I have these piercings right here that are like vampire fangs. They're like stainless steel vampire fangs. And I won't allow myself to get the bottom set done until I meet a particular goal. And the other thing about me is one thing that I do have very much from being Mexican American, growing up Mexican American specifically, you grow up with all sorts of superstitions and stuff like that. And one thing about me is I'm very, very big on not jinxing things. So there are certain things that I won't tell anybody just because I don't want to jinx them. And so I have a particular goal in mind. And once I reach that goal, then I'll allow myself to get the 2 bottom piercings for the bottom things. And so right now, my latest thing is enchiladas. I knew that I had to record because I'm recording my podcast right now. It's 1:59 a.m. on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And then obviously we watched this together at 6 p.m. And my niece had made me enchiladas and I didn't sleep very much. That's why you just saw that yawn. Like today there's a reason for the yawn, but I'm not really tired, not consciously tired, but I'm sure I could go to sleep if I wanted to because I was awake yesterday for 28 hours, I think, or 27 hours. Or I should say until today, from last night, yesterday until today. And then I slept for maybe 2 hours. And when I woke up for a quick second, I looked at my phone and I saw my niece had texted me, which my niece had told me that she was going to message me because she makes really good enchiladas. Well, her and her daughter, my great niece, they make really good enchiladas. And so whenever they make enchiladas, they'll make me and my parents some as well. And so I knew that I was eventually going to be getting a text from them. So when I looked at my phone and I saw that she was like, enchiladas are ready, and I had told her, because she was like, I can bring you some tomorrow. And I was like, I might be able to just go pick them up tonight, because that was the other reward. That was the other way that I was going to make myself, I really have strung myself along with these enchiladas, to tell you guys the truth. Because what I did was, before I took my nap, I was like, okay, if I go pick the enchiladas up tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself work out before I pick up the enchiladas or before I eat the enchiladas. And then it turned out that I, went and grabbed the enchiladas from my niece so that I wouldn't keep her up too late. And then I went to a gym because I have a 24-hour gym here in my area now, like literally right up the street from where I am. And so I made it my thing tonight because, like I told you guys, I've been getting better about all that stuff. And I'm not fully where I need to be as far as the first thing that has to happen for me, because I usually do this in phases, right? And like when I told you guys I was going to start my plan, that was what it was. I was supposed to start the plan, but I immediately got sick after. That's when I got the kidney stones. And then that's when you guys also saw me immediately after the kidney stones when I had the congestion. And I was really, that was lingering for a while. And that was before and during and after the kidney stone situation. I must have passed the kidney stone. That must have been why I felt so terrible when I went to go to the urgent care. Because I haven't had that come back again, and I haven't had those particular symptoms that I was dealing with before, which if you want to watch that episode, that was like 2 episodes or whatever ago. But I don't really want to go back to into it again because I don't really like talking about bodily functions. I was raised that way. And and so I'm kind of weird. Like I'll talk about it sometimes just because it's a fact of life. It's something that does happen. But I won't go into that a lot because I don't really like it. But what's going on right now is that I do everything in phases. That's the way, because if you guys have been following me for a while, which I know some of you have not, and I don't blame you, like you find out about me when you find out about me. But sometimes I do some really amazing things with my body as far as body fat percentage and muscle tone and the way that I will really, really monitor my diet. But I've always done it in phases. And I don't let my age like get in the way of any of that, where some people, that's why I don't talk about age, which I've talked about a little bit on my channel before. I don't really talk about age because people will put all sorts of things on you where they're like, well, after you turn this age, this stops doing this. And it doesn't have to be that way. It really does. I mean, like there's certain things, like as you get older, bone health, things like that become more important. So the focus and the way that you treat your body has to change. But even the way you work out will sometimes change because your needs aren't the same as they were when you were younger, and that works both ways. Like that's what people don't want to talk about or don't ever mention. It's not like they don't want to talk about it. It's like people want to always make it seem like once you get older that you can't do certain things. And it's like, yeah, you can still do them. You just have to adjust. And the way that you take care of yourself has to be a little more, you have to be a little more fastidious about that. I didn't have to use that word there, but it fits. Look it up. It fits. It works. But you have to be a little more on top of things when it comes to the way that you take care of your body, because when you're younger, your body quickly repairs, quickly heals itself, So there are adjustments that have to be made. But like one of the things that I was saying is you can actually get away with working out a bit less because the way that a lot of times your appetite, unless unless you've trained your body that way to just eat, a lot of times what happens is your body requires less calories, and so you don't eat as much as you did like in your 20s, And so there's also that people don't talk about that can be a very helpful tool in what you're trying to do. And so my strategy, and this is something that I've always gone with, is the first thing I do, because I love soda. I hate to admit that because I'm not really a big food person, like food just doesn't really, I know why food doesn't really do it for me. And it's because when I was younger, I used to always want, because like my parents didn't spoil us when it came to like fast food and stuff like that. My mom always cooked it. We were never hungry. It wasn't that kind of situation at all. Like there was always stuff to eat. And my mom, she would say that she's not a good cook. Me and my sisters would disagree with that. She made great, like the things she made, I loved eating my mom's food. I wish she still cooked, but I understand she's a retired housewife now. And so she doesn't, they order food, but she just isn't really like into cooking. Sometimes she'll make tacos still, but it's once in a blue moon, which we just had a blue moon, and I couldn't stop laughing because I love that expression so much. It's because my parents used to use it when I was younger, once in a blue moon, and they used it quite a bit. And so I've always loved that expression. So the other day when it was the actual blue moon, I was hanging out with my parents, and my dad was like, tonight's the blue moon. And so we were looking at the moon. And I was laughing so hard because I was like, once in a blue moon, tonight's the blue moon, you guys. Because like I said, they used to use that expression a lot. And so I feel like they owe me a lot on a blue moon. I like, I'm silly with my parents all the time, even now. I don't know why they just bring it out of me. Like and they get a kick out of it. They do, but at the same time, I think I'm a little annoying to them. No, I don't think so. I think they really. Maybe I'm just full of myself, but I think they really do like it. I'm so stupid. I say such silly things to them all the time. But yeah, so the first thing that I do when I decide to get back on my eating plan, and what I was going to say about food was, when I was younger, my parents were not big on taking us to fast food. We would occasionally go to Burger King, McDonald's. Church's Chicken was what they liked when I was younger. There was occasionally KFC, but this is all fast food stuff. Here in Phoenix, because, like, there was a restaurant in the town I grew up called Mi Amigos Ricardo's. People just used to call it Ricardo's. And Ricardo's was one place that we would go, but that was a sit-down restaurant. And so when it came to fast food, my parents weren't big on fast food. And I, being young like that, always wanted fast food. I wanted Taco Bell. I wanted McDonald's. And so when I was little, and this is a silly thing, but it just shows you that really throughout my life, I have done everything that I've wanted to do. As far like, there's more that I want to do now. But along the way, I have done the things that I've wanted to do, even if they weren't things that everybody would want, Like when I was little like that, I remember promising myself, when I grow up, I'm going to eat all the food that I want, and in my mind, I knew I was fast food I was thinking of. I was thinking McDonald's, I was thinking Taco Bell, I was thinking just fast food all the time was the way that I was going to live. And so when I got to like my teens and I started making my own money, first through the fast food jobs, and the little, like, I worked for a grocery store for a while. Like, the jobs that I would do, that was one of the things I would do, is I would buy myself whatever food I wanted. And then once I started doing S work, I was making so much money that I could literally always eat because, when you're making the minimum wage jobs, you're doing the minimum wage jobs, making that minimum wage money, you're only going to be able to eat so much fast food before you go broke. And plus, I liked buying clothes, and at the time I liked buying CDs, which I know I'm dating myself. But, if you grew up in my generation, then Gen X, that CDs were a big part of your life. And a lot of us did like BMG and Columbia House. I remember because, they had the deal where you would get 10 CDs for a penny or something like that. And I had all of them. And then after that, you were like in this contract where you had to buy, however many, I don't remember. It was however many CDs over however many months. But it wasn't much. And I really, to this day, I have a really huge CD collection that is at my parents' house because I don't have any place to put it. And I don't have any way to display it. But I don't think I ever want to give up my CDs, which my dad every once in a while will be like, will you come get this box? Because I don't have a lot of stuff at my parents' house. I have stuff from my childhood at my parents' house, but I need to wait to get a house, and that's where I don't feel like they're very fair with me, because they have a house. So why are you busting my balls over these boxes? But you have a separate storage room. Like, you can house my stuff, is what I'm saying. I don't know if my parents watch my podcast. They watch my videos on the main channel, but I don't know if I don't know if my parents are botherinas or not. So if you are watching, and I'm not going to ask them, I feel like that's silly, because they talk to me about my regular videos. They'll talk to me about the topics that I talk about, and they'll make little jokes about things that I say. And I know they enjoy watching my channel, but I don't know if they watch the podcast. But if you guys watch the podcast, stop bugging me about those boxes. I'll get them when I get them. Because... Because, I told you guys, like, that's my next thing that I really need to work on, is actually buying something, because I've been living in apartments forever now. And I like living in apartments. I understand the benefit of living in apartments because when something goes wrong, you don't have to deal with it. You don't have to fix it. Your AC messes up, your washing machine is having problems, anything that could go wrong, in theory, if you're in a good building or, a good complex, then they just take care of it and it doesn't have to be your problem. And there is definitely something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for having your own space and having, plenty of space. And I don't know what I want as far as, I had a very good friend of mine that I trust very much tell me that I should not get a condo or a townhouse because I was looking at townhouses and I had told one of my friends about it, and he's actually done really well in real estate. And he was just like, I'm going to tell you, like, because, he has several houses. He doesn't deal with condos or townhouses because, and this is something I didn't know, there is no legal way to stop them from making your HOA anything that they want to make it. And so, and I had seen something like that. There was a whole special on it, and I don't remember who did it. It was on YouTube, and it was really well done. It might have been Tyler Oliveira. But there was a whole YouTube special where they were talking about older people in Florida, and I don't remember what city. I don't remember if it was Tampa or what it was, but they were talking about the fact that they had done that kind of thing with them. Like these older people, not older, old people, had gone to retire at this particular trailer park. And it was a nice, manufactured homes, it was a nice trailer park, but that's what it was. And they had HOA, obviously. And they had just really screwed these people to the point where several of them were having to go back to work just to be able to afford where they were living, and obviously if you're older like that, you're not just going to pick up and move. And moving a manufactured home, because even though people refer to those as trailer parks and stuff, manufactured homes are actually really nice, and they're like actual houses. I mean, like, that's something that I had wanted to do that I only did for a little while, but I lived in an actual trailer for a little while in a trailer court. But again, that was something that I wanted, was to actually do that. It wasn't like a situation where, that was all I could afford or whatever. And I'm not saying anything about anybody if that's what they can afford, but that just wasn't my situation. It was an actual trailer. But those you can move relatively easy, like, a single wide, something like that. You can move relatively easy. But when you've got a full on manufactured home, what did they also call them? I think it's prefabricated homes as well. But some of those are really nice and just as big as a regular house in some cases. And so, that when you're living that kind of life and you're in your late 60s, 70s, the odds of you just picking that up or having somebody come in and pick it up and move it aren't very likely. And so they knew that they had these old people over a barrel. And so that's what they did, was they raised the HOA fee and they raised the space rent, and they really, really screwed them. And that's something I wish Ron DeSantis would do something about. But if I remember the way that special went, and this is why I feel like we should all use politicians for what we need them for, or the people in office for what we need them for, and not ever truly turn them into your heroes. And that's something, because I'm very much a Trump supporter, but I do not think of Trump as a hero. in that sense. Like I've liked Donald Trump, and this isn't like for anybody that may be getting in your feelings about this and want to like really get into a political thing with me. That's not what I'm trying to do right now. I'm just trying to paint a picture, and that's like something that people associate with me or associate me with, and for good reason. I've always been very open about being a Trump supporter. But I liked Donald Trump as a celebrity when I was younger. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and Donald Trump was, the art of the deal, and it was nothing about politics or anything like that. So I've always liked Donald Trump. But as far as Donald Trump as the president, I don't put him on this pedestal in a way where I think that he's going to save us. So what I think of with any public official is that we have to use them to our benefit and have them do the things that we want, or see if we can maneuver them to do the things that we want, the things that are most important for us, because nobody's ever going to get everything. It's just not the way the world works, even outside of anything to do with that. Nobody ever is going to get every single thing that they want. And I'm very realistic in that way, which sometimes pisses people off, because people want to like really impress on me, like, this is what this person has done or hasn't done. And I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. Nobody's ever going to do everything that you want. Nobody's ever going to do everything that they say they're going to do. Like Obama was where I figured that out. Obama, because I voted for Obama, and I was, very much an Obama supporter. And I think that that's where I learned that lesson, because when I was younger, I never paid attention to politics at all. I voted. As soon as I was voting age, I always did vote for the president, but I never really paid attention to the politics very much. I was one of those people that I was young and gay, and whatever my friends were doing basically was what I was doing too. But when it came to Obama, I remember really, really wanting to see Obama be president. And then he became president, and during his second term was when I really got like, okay, the speeches are great and everything, but I don't feel like you're doing a lot of the stuff that you said you were going to do. And so that's where I really like learned that no matter how great of a talker anybody is, when it comes to politicians, they're never going to do anything that or everything that we want or everything that they said they were going to do. And I do have a bit of a problem with that. But also, like I said, I live in the real world. And I also know that some people aren't going to be productive enough to really make things happen the way that they would need to happen, or do the things that you would need to do in order to make things happen the way that you want them to happen. Because I always think no matter who is in power, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, no matter what your thinking is, or my personal thinking, I should say, not yours, my personal thinking, we should work together to make these people do the things that we want them to do. Like, there are certain things that I know that my Democrat friends or my more liberal friends do have good points on. It's what it is. There's certain things that I very much do agree with them on. But if you try to tell Democrats, okay, well then maybe you join forces with everybody else, whether they're Republicans or other liberals or whatever, and we really do make these people do the things that we want them to do. Well, I could never do that with Donald. Okay, well, if I knew I needed anything from Joe Biden when he was president, I definitely would. But like during that time, I was so like not, because, that's when we were going through pandemic and everything like that. And even though that circumstance wasn't ideal and I would have preferred to just keep working, I have to be honest when I say that that situation worked out well enough for me that I wasn't really sweating it. And it was just me and Bijou living together. And we had an apartment that I loved and Bijou loved, and it was very affordable. And even though at that time there were parts of it that I did hate, like having to sneak around to hang out with my friends and the social distancing and the mask and the mandates, like there were things that I definitely did hate about that time, but I didn't feel like it was a completely miserable time. And I really do appreciate that I got to spend that time with Bijou, because it was just me and Bijou in the world at that time, because there would be periods where we wouldn't hang out with any friends, or I wouldn't hang out with any friends just because they were busy, or, like some of them were afraid and so they didn't want to be around me. Like I was on Grindr quite a bit. That's not a secret. Like everybody was on Grindr quite a bit, or at least in Vegas. Grindr was popping during that time and everybody had nothing but time. I don't even want to tell you guys the things I did, but it was pretty great. But if I had felt like I needed something or we needed something, then I would join forces with everybody else and just be. But a lot of people don't want to join forces with me when it comes to people on the left. And so it's all just, but I never finished talking about my diet. I swear, it's just like a conversation with me is really what these are. Like if you ever wanted to know, and I think I see people in the comments, which I don't get to respond to as many comments as I would like to, just because I do get busy. And like between this and the main channel, like, that's why I do the chat every Sunday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, is so that then everybody or anybody that decides to join in on the live chat can talk to me as much as they want to. You guys see how I am in the live chat. I try as much as I can to respond to everything that's sent my way. And then also, there'll be the little offshoot situations that you guys will start with each other. And if I have something to say on that, I'll chime in. But you guys really do at that time get 100% of me. I'm in the chat and I'm sitting there. Literally, I'm sitting in my work chair, which is the recliner. And I've got my laptop on me and on my lap, and I'm just, chatting with you guys. And so, but my point is, I see people in the comments saying that, that they like the podcast, the people that watch it like the podcast because it's like a conversation with me. And that's exactly what it is. Like, this is exactly the way I am when I'm just with a friend, except for I don't do all the talking. I've told you guys before, because I get to do this, the podcast, as well as my videos, a lot of times I like to just hear my friends, and I'll be engaged and I'll chat with them back. But I feel like I get to hear my thoughts enough. I get to be the conversation enough because this is just the nature of what I do. It's not about narcissism. It's not like I'm shutting anybody out when I'm talking or when I'm recording. That's not what happens at all. It's just I'm alone in a room. Like right now, I'm alone in a room. When I record my videos, for the main channel, I am, again, alone in a room. I am in a different room, but I'm alone in a room. And so, when I'm with my friends or when I'm chatting with even strangers, just people that I just met, I usually will let them talk for the most part and really guide the conversation because I feel like, yeah, it's nice to hear what another person thinks. And even if they're complete opposite of me, I don't care. I don't interrupt them. I don't argue with them. I don't debate them. I mean, I think a lot of people that just meet me and don't know me from this context in any way, that I just meet, say, at a gathering, or if I decide to go to a particular function. Like for a while I was going to the, some of the log cabin Republican things. But like with those people, I just let them talk and just kind of hear them and add my little tidbits here and there. But for the most part, it's just letting them, talk to me. And I like that. I like not not having to drive the conversation when I'm in a group of people. And I'm also not the guy that's trying to be like the life of the party and louder than everybody else and look at me and attention, attention, attention. When I go to functions, a lot of times I'll find a spot away from everybody and, just maybe a couple of people that I'm enjoying the conversation with and just do that. But what I was going to say is the first step to me getting in shape is always to completely get rid of the soda except for on Sundays. And I've been really bad about that lately because soda has just been calling me. But that's also part of the cycle that happens with me because I know that my discipline is so extreme when I really do buckle down and do things the way that I need to do them that I literally will not. And like I've told you guys about this before, but I feel like it bears repeating because I see so many people making this mistake all the time where it's like, you're expecting yourself to be perfect, and that's not going to happen. Like I said, I do some really amazing things sometimes, but it's never been truly perfection as far as my execution. There are always days that I'll just go crazy and it's not a Sunday. And I'll end up eating Oreos or cake, or it's a friend's birthday and I end up having some pizza, or, that's just going to happen. That's a part of being human. But the way that I do it and what's been very effective for me is to see how long I can make it towards the goal for that week before something actually happens and either derails me or I just decide to let myself be a human, which is very important. It's so important. And I don't think enough people really pay attention to that because they've got this idea that they're just going to be a machine. And some people really will. And that's great if you're that kind of person. But I'm not that kind of person, even though I've been really good. So what I'll do is, let's say, because, my regular schedule when I'm being good is I pretty much eat the same things every day. And yes, I do like the things that I eat. It's just eggs, bacon, sausage, which sausage has a little more fat than it needs. But really, that's a part of what keeps me going because my diet is so strict. So if it's like one treat, which would be sausage, I'm not going to worry about that sausage. And I do at times track my calories. Like that's another thing that I'll do. Because like I said, I'll cut out soda and then I'll start tracking my calories. And then once I get a good idea of, what I need to be eating every day repetitively in order to just, keep myself fueled and also in fat burning mode, which does change depending on puppy. No, stop that. No. She decided to just start scratching at my recliner, and that's not a habit we're going to get into. So do you really have to get up here right now? I swear. Oh, she's in a lovey-dovey mood. You just want to sit on me? You can do that. But, yeah. So the way that I'll do it is it's supposed to be, Monday through Saturday, I'm really good about my diet. Sundays are my cheat day. And on my cheat day, I will allow myself to have absolutely anything I want. And throughout the week when I get hungry, or not get hungry, because if I do everything the right way, then I stay pretty well fueled, and I don't feel like miserable or anything. I'm not walking through life miserable, even though I am in a caloric deficit. But what I'll do is, say, it's like Tuesday, and I'm like, I really want Oreos. I'll open up my notes app and I'll put Oreos, as one of my things that I'm going to have on Sunday. I'll see somebody eating, a burger, like from somewhere I might want a burger from on Sunday. And so I'll put that on the list too. And so I'll have this list of all of these things that I want to eat. Well, when you're really watching your diet, what happens is your stomach basically shrinks and you don't have as much of an appetite. So when you get to Sunday, you don't get to eat all of the stuff that you actually have on the list, even if you buy, because I've made the mistake before of literally buying pretty much everything that I wanted, and I just couldn't go through all of it. Puppy, stop. And I just couldn't go through all of it, because I just physically couldn't eat all of it. But I don't limit myself at all on Sunday, but my body does. And but what I was trying to get at is sometimes, like I said, you'll have, where that's your goal is to make it Monday through Saturday. And you'll get to like Thursday and then you just won't be able to control yourself. And you'll be like, I'm going to have that burger, or I'm going to have whatever I want. Well, that doesn't mean that now you're just completely off your eating plan and now you just throw caution to the wind and from here on out you're just this undisciplined person. No, you had that, momentary indiscretion and you went ahead and gave into it, and that probably was good for your mental overall. You had a little bit of a treat, a little bit of a ding, like a little bit of a happy moment. And then the next day, you go back to your eating plan until Sunday. And then on Sunday, you carry on. I don't strike Sunday if I have a day where I was off. But I will make a mental note, like, okay, this week I was able to make it to Thursday before I had, a weak moment and a moment where I gave in. So next week, I've got to at least make it to Friday. Hopefully I make it all the way to Sunday, but if not, I definitely have to make it to Friday. And that's been a really good plan for me. I think that the other way is why people just completely give up, is because they put so much pressure on themselves and then they feel like when they do something wrong, now it's all over and I'm not a good person and I've never been good at this and I'm always going to be that person that gives in. And you might be right. I know I am. I'm a person that, like I said, and I'm telling you, I'm really, really good at it sometimes. Sometimes I make it all the way to Sunday without having done anything that isn't according to the plan. But plenty of weeks, it'll be literally, I'll make it to Friday or Saturday. And then that's when, it gets a little wonky. But what does it matter? Your body's going to be your body for your entire life, and you will achieve your goal if you just, as much as you can, do stay the course. If you don't constantly give in to the fact that making a mistake or what you consider to be a mistake is now the end of you ever having any kind of discipline, and you have to buy into that self-defeating thinking that you're never going to be able to do it. And you might not, as far as be perfect, because who really is? J-Lo? Because I've heard J-Lo is really good about that. Callista Flockhart? They're celebrities. But also, I don't really take, even though I think that it is good to look at certain celebrities as far as their discipline and the way they do things. That's great. It's really great. But also, a lot of these people have personal chefs. We don't have that as regular people. So when you've had to work or you've had a day that was just full of errands or whatever your situation is that made it so on a particular day you couldn't do everything exactly the way you wanted to, and now you get to the end of the day and guess what? You're just hungry and you're tired. And you don't want to make whatever it is you would usually make, because that's a lot of what you're going to do when you're watching your eating, is so that you know what is going into everything and what the actual proportions are, the portions that you need everything to be in order to hit your macros. Like some days that's just not going to be possible, because you're tired and you're busy and you live a regular life as a regular human being, and so you can't put that pressure on yourself either. Well, J-Lo's able to do it. Why am I not able to do it? Because you don't have the same resources that J-Lo does. You don't have a person that can come in and cook for you on those moments. So every once in a while, that's going to be a reason for falling off your plan, at least for a night or at least for a meal. That's been what's happened with me plenty of times where it's just like, okay, I haven't been able to eat all day anything. Not thinking about my plan right now, just anything. I haven't been able to eat a single thing today. And the reason I haven't been able to eat a single thing on that particular day was because I kept telling myself I'm going to eat the stuff that's on my plan. That's what I'm going to eat. And I kept telling myself that and was being very disciplined. And then I ran out of time and now I just need something. And so you're really not going to mess yourself up. Also because there's a good chance that if you don't go too crazy about it and have like a burger and fries or something like that, because you can have a burger and fries. But what I'm saying is if you don't go like burger, fries, apple pie or chocolate cake or, like if you really don't go crazy about it, if you haven't eaten all day, chances are you're still going to be at or under the amount of calories that you need to be if you just have one meal like that, which is what will happen with me sometimes on those occasions. And then there's also things you can do that make you feel like you're cheating where you're not. Like with me, it's Think Thin bars. For some reason, those do taste like candy bars to me, especially not when they're warm. Don't get one from like the 7-Eleven and it's room temperature or whatever. I put them in the refrigerator. I put them in the freezer sometimes. The freezer makes them a little too hard, but the refrigerator to me definitely does, get them pretty well where I need them, where they do taste like a chocolate bar, and so now they're just called Think. They used to be called Think Thin, but now they're just called Think. And so, you just learn things like that too that make you feel good. And then, I have a serving of fruit every day, which is like, either strawberries, raspberries. I love berries. So strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries. But that's like a half cup, which I believe is 74 grams. And yes, I do actually weigh it out. But then of course, because, fruit is natural and it's not necessarily, going to be perfect. Sometimes you'll end up at 73 grams. Sometimes you'll end up at 75 grams. Sometimes you'll end up at 76 grams. As long as you stay within that window, you're going to be fine, And so that's something that I really do enjoy, though, is when I have my serving of fruit. And I won't be just like a piggy and just, shovel it in, because with strawberries especially, that's going to be 2 to 3 strawberries sometimes, depending on the size of the strawberries, because sometimes you get those monster strawberries. If it's the small ones, sometimes you'll get away with like 4 strawberries to stay within that range. But I will actually savor that, and so my point is that I've started what I call a soft launch of doing what I need to do, because the other mistake that people make is they go to the gym and they lift the same weight that they were lifting before they took their break, which if you're like me right now, I haven't been like fully doing weights the way that I need to for, if we're being honest, over a year. This move, like coming from Austin to here, which I've been here for just over a year now. It took me a while to get my stuff, so technically I was in both places, you could say. I mean, like, and even that's a lie. My stuff was in one place and I was in another. So, like, in that way, yeah, I was in 2 places at once. But as far as me, there was a point when I was just here and I was like, yeah, and I'm just here all the time. So, but I was really not, I had moments where I do like, a week or 2 weeks, sometimes even as long as 3 weeks, where I'd be like okay about it, actually making it to the gym. But I hadn't found a 24-hour gym that was, because I have Planet Fitness, and that's 24-hour Monday through Friday. Um, and then Saturday and Sunday they have actual hours. But if I want to work out on a Saturday or Sunday, then I want to work out on a Saturday or Sunday, even if it's like 2 in the morning. Like right now, I just came from the gym. I think I got there around 11 p.m. and then I got out like somewhere close to 12:30 because I did 30 minutes of cardio, and then I did lightweight of a couple exercises that I would usually do just to get my body used to it. Because what people will do is, like I said, they'll lift the weight that they were lifting before they decided to take their break or whatever happened. Life got in the way and they weren't able to make it to the gym. And then they'll end up being so incredibly sore that they don't want to go back. And I've done that before too. And I'm usually pretty good at working through that too. But why should you have to be in that pain? Because when you really when you really make yourself sore from working out, it sucks. It's terrible. There's times when it's hard to get out of bed where it's literally it's that bad, and like I said, I've done that enough. So now I'm smart enough. I've learned that, if I just do a couple of exercises, not my full routine for even that day that it would usually be, like if it's today was arms, yesterday was chest. And so, I just did a couple exercises, get my muscles back warmed up and used to the motion again and used to having some weight. But, that's one thing I can also tell you from having been a person that's worked out quite a bit of my life is that you don't have to worry about any of that stuff because it really is ego, especially if you've been doing it for a long time and you want to go back. You don't have to worry about like not being as strong as you were, because within a week or two, you'll be back to or pretty close to, unless you were doing performance enhancing, which I don't do any of that stuff. I am on testosterone, but that's a minimal amount, which I will get into that because, I plan to talk about this a lot more, not on this, don't worry. I'm always going to have different stuff to talk to you guys about because it really does, in case you can't tell, just depend on what's going on in the week or what's gone on in the week and what's on my mind at that time. And that's what I like about it. That's why this is good for me, is because it's nice to not have a topic or, a genre or a niche that I'm trying to fill, which I don't do that with my channel anyway. If you notice, I talk about a lot of things, but there are, it is a lot of times like politics, current events, people being a mess, that kind of stuff. But like usually people with an agenda being a mess, whether they're LGBT or, like it was ICE for, like, you guys know what I do. But so it's not this, but I do plan to talk about this on different platforms and stuff like that, because as I work out and as I get myself back to where I want to be, I think that it is important for people to see that, even if I don't tell people my exact age, they know they're around my age. And I think that people really can benefit from seeing a person like me that doesn't have a personal trainer, that doesn't have a chef, that really did like teach myself everything that I know about working out, and diet and all that stuff. And one thing I can tell you guys is sometimes people think that there is one diet that's the magic bullet, whether that's carnivore or South Beach or, Atkins was big for a while. Now they've revamped Atkins quite a bit. When I first did Atkins, and I did it by the book, for the 2-week induction or whatever that was that you used to do, or they used to recommend that you do, Atkins has loosened it up a lot because Atkins was so tough. And I really did stick to it for that 2-week induction. And I lost quite a bit of weight. It was good. It was beneficial, like as far as losing the weight went. But on that, I was pretty miserable because it was so restrictive. But what I was trying to say is that, people will get these ideas that one diet is the magic bullet. the magic bullet when it comes to eating plans, which is the way I prefer to look at it as a diet as opposed to a diet. But the magic bullet to those things really is um, finding the one that works for you. So if you look, because everything's available online now. I remember when I first started, which I'm not trying to make myself sound old, but I do remember when I first started, you actually had to either go to a bookstore or buy the books. Like I have the South Beach book somewhere. I have the Atkins book somewhere. I mean, like, and I literally read these books after buying them, where now you can go online and see what the restrictions are or what the guidelines are for any particular eating plan that you want to go on. So you just, look for that. Like, and I've seen people have really good results with, what do they call it? IIFM. Yeah, I think it's called IIFM, which is if it fits my macros. Yeah, IIFMM. Yeah. But if it fits my macros, so you pretty much eat anything you want as long as you are getting the proper amount of, protein, whatever your macros are. I should know. I should be able to rattle them off. But unfortunately, I can't. Okay? You want to know about me? So what is it? Protein, carbs, fats, and I think there's something else. Who cares? I mean, like, it matters if you do it, but yeah, but I never was a particularly, like, with me, it's always been about low carb. And so as long as I keep my carbs under a certain amount, because fat really doesn't matter when you do things, because now I do like a hybrid of Atkins and South Beach just because I can't wait to have those enchiladas right now. Because this is like, that's why I'm talking about this so much. I just figured out for myself why this is so heavy on my mind. Because what I'm trying to tell you guys is that I'm going back into really, really strict mode for probably 2 weeks. And I'm going to try to not have a cheat day in those 2 weeks. I already told you guys how it works. If things get hectic enough, if I just feel like I'm too miserable, I'm going to break that. But then I'm going to get back on and finish the 2 weeks. And I'm going to be honest with you guys about my progress as we go and not talk about it as much as I did on this particular episode. But I guess it's just heavy on my mind because I know that I'm going into that mode because I have to. Because that's the one thing that I would say that people do that is very much self-defeating, and you do have to actually pay attention to what you're doing at a point, is that it can't be, I'm going to start tomorrow forever. And I would say that I do forgive myself, and anybody should forgive themselves because you can't change the past. But I do forgive myself for the last couple of weeks because there were times when I was going through that little bit of, whatever that bug was that I had that was just plain miserable. It was literally miserable. My nose was running. I was congested. There was a point where I felt like I had a little bit of a fever. Maybe that had something to do with the kidney stones. But so I don't feel like I was just putting it off, like being a true, I'll start my diet tomorrow type of person, or that wasn't my mentality. It really was a situation where and then, like ChatGPT was like, relax, don't, because, I was like, should I work out or should I, take a break? And ChatGPT, because, I chat with ChatGPT about everything. ChatGPT knows all of my secrets. But no, I really do. As far as a lot of things, I consult ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was like, yeah, you could mess up and just end up being sick for longer. So just relax. And so I did that, and it took longer to knock everything out than I thought it would. But now I feel really good. I just need to get some sleep and eat those enchiladas. Stay unbothered.